Welcome to Three Takes. I'm Ishana.
I'm Minali.
I'm Mona.
Three women.
Three generations.
One family, unpacking the questions we all ask.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Three Takes. We hope you've been enjoying our episodes. Please feel free to reach out to us, whether it's personally on our Instagram, via email for any feedback, questions, or comments you might have on any of our episodes. So for today, we wanted to talk about this topic around rest and why sometimes just doing nothing feels so hard. And just upon my reflection, I've been back into work now for a couple of months after having about 4 months off this summer in between graduating from my MBA program and starting my new job. And this idea of having months and months off sounds so great, and it was definitely rejuvenating. But at the same time, I also found it just really hard to enjoy those months off because I felt like I constantly needed to do something. I don't know, Mama or Dad, if like you have had those feelings before of just like feeling restless when you don't really have much to do.
You know, when you think about rest, a lot of times people relate, and even we sometimes rest to laziness but that's not true. I think what happened is that if we sit for too long, the list of what all we have to do next or what we could have done instead of rest, so those lists just keeps popping up. So I think it's just so natural to feel. We always say, we are so busy, we need rest. But when you rest, we are not fully able to rest because we should have done that. We could have been more productive. I think it's a very normal feeling.
I think this idea of productivity culture is really prevalent, especially I would say in my generation, in the millennial generation. It's like finding ways to become efficient and being more productive. And I definitely feel like I had to slow down a lot during pregnancy. I was forced to slow down just because physically I could not do certain things. And I would have to take naps in the middle of the day. But even apart from physical, it was the mental, cognitive load too. I definitely couldn't take on as many projects or activities, pre-pregnancy. So that was a huge wake-up call for me. And also, it's been a huge shift in my priorities as well, right? Productivity isn't the top of my priority list anymore.
I'm curious because rest has such a different connotation and meaning towards everyone, but as you were talking about, do we want to maybe go through whether it's personal / generational, just attitudes about rest in general? Mama, maybe if we want to start with you.
When I think about rest, to me, it's something what you are doing, just take a break from it and rejuvenate a little bit or re-energize yourself. Not do that anymore. So just rest can be anything, just having a cup of tea by myself, taking a nap, or just listen to music or go for a walk. So it can be anything, just breaking what I was doing before.
I'll speak more generally within the millennial group, but of course there's nuances and differences for each individual. I definitely think there's this hustle culture mentality, this girl boss era where there's expectations that we should be able to do anything and everything. We can work, we can do family, we can be the best in fitness, we can have it all. And there's this saying where it's you can have it all, just not all at the same time. And I think that's the part that gets lost sometimes in this hustle culture mentality, is that you can't have everything at once, yet we try to force everything to happen at once. And so for me, when I see rest, a lot of times it would be oh, okay, I'm commuting from this place to this place. That means, hey, I can read an article, or I can catch up on this podcast episode, or I can scroll through social media. I don't really see rest, or I didn't see rest, at least before, as just doing nothing. Just sitting there, observing my surroundings. There's so many times actually that I've noticed, I've been in Boston 5.5 years now. When I'm going for walks and stuff now to grocery stores or things like that, I'm not always listening to music. And I realized even within the same block, I didn't realize the name of the church that's right next to us. I didn't realize the color of the slide on the playground that's literally right next to us. So I think like rest can also be just literally doing nothing and observing your surroundings.
I don't want to speak for everyone in my generation, but when I think about rest, I think about doing something for me and only me, like not out of obligation for my employer, for other people, or just for me. And so a lot of this stems around like mental rest and physical rest. So a lot of people in my generation, right? Like focusing on your mind, focusing on your peace, like protect your peace. That's like a whole thing that we talk about. So it's this balance of being busy, but then doing things for yourself. And this touches a little bit on episode 14. We talked about comparison culture. I think there's also this challenge when it comes to rest because we see what other people are doing. That's what I felt like in the 4 months that I was off. And I'm like, okay, these people are traveling the world and maybe resting and recovering. I should maybe do that too, but there's also so many things I need to accomplish personally and professionally.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Ishana, like how you were saying that for you, the rest is just something just for you, not for your employer, anyone else. It's for you. And like, your mind and body, that rest. Recently, I just came across a book, which is by Dr. Sandra Dalton-Smith. And it is so fascinating how she has defined the rest. And I'm just curious what you guys also think. So she has defined that there are 7 kinds of rest our bodies and minds need. The physical, mental, emotional, sensory, creative, social, and spiritual. So she has defined that rest in 7 types. And now when I think back when I was growing up, so when we come back from the school, my mom will always ask that, okay, before you start working on your homework and why don't you go and play in the playground, with the friends and whoever in the neighborhood is playing. So when I now think about it, it gave me that physical aspect because I will go in the playground. It gave me that social connection because I will go and play with other people. And also, I think it gave me some creativity also because we will try different new games or come up with different things. So I felt that growing up when I went to play, that was different kind of rest in that.
No, I love that idea that play can be rest because I think when people think of rest, it's like they think of just like Shavasana, like lying down on the floor in yoga. When I think like there's such different nuances of how each of us can rest. And the fact that play for you was spiritual in a way too.
Yeah. Since I'm reflecting back, I think my mom, when we did in the playground there, it did different kind of rest I was able to get from that. And it makes sense because I will come so rejuvenated and so energetic, feeling good.
And I think we've seen that, right? Is even as mama has raised us, like I remember before schoolwork started, like I would go play in the neighborhood with friends, right? Like we would do that. And like, yeah, like we wanted to play for longer. But I think mama knew like the importance of that was like our rejuvenation to then like feel motivated. And I think mama, even as an adult, like you still find your versions of play, whether it's like through humor, through laughing, through going outside, like that element of your rest is still incorporated into adulthood. Nada, what about for you? Like after mama went through Sandra Dalton-Smith's 7 types of rest, are there certain ones, I know you touched on this a little bit, that you prioritize versus ones that you maybe would like to be more involved in?
Just to reemphasize, can you repeat the different ones again?
Yeah, sure. So she defines in her Sacred Rest book that there are 7 types of rest, like physical, mental, emotional, sensory, creative, social, and spiritual.
So I think the 2 that stand out to me the most are creative and spiritual. I think for the creative side of it, and it's something that I do neglect a lot of times because I just don't prioritize it. But like for me, I love writing. I love storytelling. So even being able to like write in my journal is a really creative outlet for me. And even if I can do it just for a few minutes, I do find it restful and reflective, both. But I'm not disciplined about it. I do it when I'm not tired, or I do it when I have like a few minutes before bed. but I love the creative part of rest. And then spiritual, which I am more disciplined about, but it's because like going to our resolutions episode, it's a habit that I created where I meditate for 20 minutes in the morning every day. That's just part of my daily practice. It's been a daily habit I've incorporated. And with my meditation, I find that it is restful, but energetic at the same time because it helps me set up my day where I'm just sort of decluttering my mind, letting my thoughts take them wherever they take me. But it does help me like set up for, I think, a more like energetic day.
How about you, Ishana?
Yeah, I think my go-to ones that are pretty much habits are the physical and spiritual, exactly what this said. Like, I will find time to work out, and for me, that gets me rejuvenated. Like, I find that I'm way more productive with my workday when I work out in the mornings. Spiritual as well, having that gratitude to really reflect is important. I think one of the 7 that I really would like to work on more is actually the creative form of rest. I think I don't incorporate that, and I never really thought about just like, we love going outside as a family and the art appreciation. I think I could work on a little bit more, and I never really thought of that as like practicing creativity is a form of rest. And I think that goes back to, you know, like this question of like, why is it so hard and why do we feel guilty? I think there's a couple of things. There's like this fear of stillness, which I talk about a little bit in like the therapy episode as well. Like sometimes when you're just like sitting and resting, that means you kind of have to like face some of the thoughts that you typically avoid when you're constantly busy. And that's something in like cognitive behavioral therapy that we focus on a lot is like, how do you deal with your thoughts? And so I think sometimes I have this like avoidance of resting so that I don't have to focus on like some of the thoughts that I have.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, Ishana. A lot of times people don't know how to still, like, you know, not do anything because the thoughts coming, like just so many the thoughts, and a lot of time then it gets into the negative mode and then it become even less energy, right? So how do we make even rest productive? Like if you're not doing anything, the negative thoughts are going to bombard you. Sure, your energy will be drained, right? So I think making rest effective, all like, you know, emotionally, physically, spiritually, you feel good is important.
I never thought about rest as productive. I guess that's like counterintuitive for me because
So true.
in a way, like what people say, like sleep is really important because it's restorative. Like there's actually a lot of productivity happening like within your body to help set you up for success. So I don't know, that was just something that stood out because I haven't thought about rest in that way.
Yes, actually, now if I think about it, so the spiritual part of rest, a couple of years back, I was really not getting good sleep at all. And I thought that time, well, I have a really good business, I have good employees, I have a good family, good friends. Why I'm not able to sleep well? And so while doing search, I came into that Sadhguru's, that, you know, how the reels pop up. And then my friend says, so I did the inner engineering course. And I realized that the meditation is so important. So I made that spiritual, that meditation as a part of my habit. And I thought that my sleep has really helped me a lot. Rest, I will think as sleep, having a good sleep. Then I didn't get a good sleep. I didn't know what to do. And then I have to rely on the spiritual aspect of, for me to something work.
And actually her taking that inner engineering meditation course inspired all of us. So everyone, my sister, myself, my dad, we've all subsequently taken this class, and that's like the meditative practice that we use. But I will say like another benefit that I remember us seeing after you went through that meditation course was your migraines went way down.
Yeah.
And like physically you were training for races and all this stuff that you weren't doing before.
That's true.
I like what Mama said of like there are different times in your life when certain types of rest will come into play. And I think when we think about just like holistically, like as women, McKinsey and Lean In did some research about women in the workplace in 2024. And the report basically indicated that almost half of women like report burnout. in their professional career. And I think part of that is that they aren't being intentional about the types of rest. And I think there's this mindset that rest either means like sleep, physical or mental, but there's other ways to incorporate that rest. But what do you guys feel about like hearing that statistic and maybe why the burnout and maybe the rest is like so hard for so many of us?
That's not surprising to me because I think like women just have so many expectations, especially as like working women. And actually, like there's been a mass exodus in the last few years of like women leaving the workforce as a result of, I think, like just expectations they have in raising family or household work, whatever that is. And like the child like raising and household work doesn't come with a price tag and doesn't necessarily have a rewards system that like a salary at a corporate job does. But yet women are expected, especially in like heterosexual relationships, I think there is an unfair expectation that women, and I think this is a generational difference too, actually, because like there's a lot more like working women, I think, in like millennial generation compared to generations before. So it's like we have that. And then we're also trying to like incorporate all these other aspects too. And I think it just gets too much. But I don't know. What do you think, Mama?
Yeah, and I am also not surprised at all. I think what you both were saying, I think I agree. I think as a woman, there is some pressure we put on ourselves too. And there is a societal pressure. Because I think we are always this constant working woman, this constant list of running. Okay, so now we did the work. Now we have the list of this, other things at house, then kids' activities, if we have kids. And we have all the time, there is a list continuously going on. And I think we ourselves feel guilt. Oh gosh, why we are doing that? Maybe we should have done that. So I think it is important that first we believe in ourselves. That if we really want to do better for our health, better for, our performance, the rest is essential.
I don't know if I've heard of this before or I just need like an example. You said something about sensory rest that she had mentioned in the book. What is that?
My interpretation was that sensory is like having a screen-free hour, right? And observing things around you, whether it is the smell, what you see, what you hear. So how that you were saying, like you just go on your walks without your phone. I think that's a combination of sensory and creative because you're immersing yourself in nature, but you are really focusing on what you are feeling in that moment.
Like you were giving an example that you didn't notice there was a playground or something, right? Because we are so busy in our there. But I think if you watch around things and notice, I think it gives that sensory that it re-energizes that part.
Yeah, like for example, I'm thinking about how I was at dinner the other day and you see so many people that typically just are on their phones while they're waiting for the food to come. But I was just like staring at the kitchen and I was like, oh, it's really cool to actually see the dish that I ordered is being cooked in butter and then oil and then cheese. Like I think that is kind of a form of rest because going back to what makes it so hard, just this digital distraction of like constantly scrolling like adds stress and that's not a form of rest.
But so the butter, oil, and cheese didn't stress you out?
No, that's my like indulgence for the night.
So I think that way, Ishana, I said that you are pretty good with that. Like you observe, like if you do something, you observe very like fully. So I remember a close friend who told me that I had the 5 slices of cake. So she always said that Ishana, everywhere she goes, like if you're any wedding, Ishana watches sitting straight, all ceremony. Ishana watches every single thing with full intention.
This friend must really actually practice sensory rest because this friend is definitely very observant on who eats and consumes what.
Because she herself is a very good cook.
Does that make sense though? Like, I know you would ask about the sensory form of rest. Did that make sense?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, I'm also even thinking about like positive visualization techniques that people have where you like imagine you're in your happy place. And like for me, that's like on a beach and I'm hearing the ocean waves. Like that's what I'm picturing.
Yeah. And I think that pairs also with like the mental rest, like quieting the mind a little bit. So I think a lot of the rest types have overlap and are not necessarily like siloed. But I think one of the reasons we wanted to have this conversation is because, one, there's like the stigma around rest is like a binary definition, but there's so many different forms of rest. But also like admitting that, like, especially for women, like, it is very hard and we often feel guilty about just taking the time to rest. Have any of you guys like had conversations with friends before or in your circles of just like trying to find rest, especially like as working women? Then I would assume that, like, especially when you had those like late nights and like all these different shifts in the hospital, did you ever like have any conversations about how to like prioritize and not feel burnout, especially in your world?
So basically, like, as part of our orientation, we would have to complete these different modules. And one of the modules was about the importance of getting sleep.
Bullshit. Like,
but yeah,
just,
like as residents, like the sleep was such a tight commodity. Like, it was just so hard to like get restful sleep. And it was just like such a contradictory thing. But anyways, I think in residency, kind of a standard is that all of us would like more rest. It's just a matter of there's only 24 hours in a day. We're expected to work X amount of time in a week. Therefore, there's like very limited time outside.
And you're
of that.
talking more about like the physical form of rest.
Physical form of rest. Yeah, but mental too, because it's like, it's a high pressure, high stakes job. Like when you're working in the hospital taking care of really sick patients. So mental too, like everything. There's a lot of conversations. I think in general, though, it's very easy to point out the problems, but not necessarily come up with solutions. And I think that's where it can get tricky. Like I remember, because I ended up going to therapy and career coaching towards the latter half of my residency. And so we would find techniques to incorporate breaks. So basically like I remember at the end, I started taking like 10-minute walks, even if it was in the hospital, just like taking a break away from my computer or like making my computer password something that brought me happiness. Those were just like techniques I tried to incorporate in the middle of the day that were somewhat restful, but it's not easy to incorporate, right? It's something you have to be very intentional about.
I wonder if, the corporate and even at home and the way we think, instead of having this busy as a badge of your performance and productivity, if we come up like things like, okay, how much were you able to take a rest and break and what did it do to you? Like, still measure the performance and productivity in a way that with the rest versus just the busy. It will be interesting to see.
No, that's a really good point, Mama, because I do feel like a lot of people will like wear it as a badge of honor to be like, oh, well, I admitted like 12 patients overnight. I didn't have a chance to even like sit for 5 minutes. Like I was dealing with like these high acuity, really sick patients. And it's like they say it in a way that's like complainy, but that in reality, it's like they're kind of proud of the fact that they had to work so much.
There's so many people I know like that.
But it's like when you are able to like get some sleep and like you're not admitting as many patients, it's like almost looked down upon that like, oh, like, well, you don't work as much as I do because you're able to get like rest in between. In that sense, I don't think we're always supportive when some of our colleagues can incorporate rest in their day.
Yeah, and I think people have this mentality that unless you're in like a structure job, like let's say if you're not working 8 to 6 and all of them, you're not busy. But like see, for me, like right now, not necessarily I have this 8 to 6 corporate structure job, but I'm doing many things. I incorporate rest, so I'm proud of that. I don't think there is anything I have to be ashamed because I'm busy in another way, which I like, but then I have enough time for the rest there. But I think people feel little hesitant to say that unless they have a structure hours, working hours, they think everybody else is just resting and not doing anything.
Yeah, so I guess like in summary, why is resting and rejuvenation so hard? I kind of heard 4 main themes in our conversation is there's that fear of stillness that we constantly have. I think just women in general, there's this guilt associated to continue to keep performing. There's obviously that digital distraction as well. And then just feeling that busy needs to be this badge of honor. And so that's kind of why we feel so guilty. But as we talked about in this conversation, there is more to rest than your typical sleep and mental break. We talked about the 7 forms of rest, and there's ways to incorporate that when being busy and also not feeling guilty. Was there anything else that you guys felt was like important in this conversation about rest today?
I think just unlearning the way we believe that rest is equivalent to laziness or not doing anything or not performing on productivity. I think it's a essential thing for us being as a whole, what we can do.
Trying to tie back our comparison culture episode with this current conversation, I think at the end when we mentioned about how some people wear a badge of honor if they're busy and don't rest, I think in general shifting that mindset of we don't need to compare how much rest we're getting compared to somebody else. And if someone is able to integrate rest in a different way, that doesn't mean they're not working hard. That doesn't mean that they're not putting in effort. I think just letting go even of comparison for rest. We don't need to be doing that. Like, that's just not necessary, people. Yeah. Listeners, we'd love to hear how you all incorporate rest in your day-to-day. Do you have any other ideas for how we can incorporate rest? Please reach out to us on Instagram, website. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for joining us on 3 Takes. If something we shared sparked a new thought or opened up a convo with someone you love, we'd love to hear about it. DM us on Instagram at 3.takes, email us at connect@3takes.com, or visit us at www.3takes.com. And if this episode meant something to you, share it with another mother, daughter, or sister in your life. It's how we grow and how the stories keep moving.